Hello and welcome to the GCN Tech Clinic. Unfortunately, Johnny Tech is not here this week. You've got me instead. But don't worry, he's already done most of the hard work. He's pulled out some of the very best questions that you've been leaving under last week's Tech Clinic show and also submitting on social media. So without further ado, let's answer some of your mechanical questions. We've got Som Bait first, who said, "Hi, can you put sealant in your inner tubes? Will it work?" So the idea being that you put like a liquid latex inside your inner tube, and then if you do get a puncture, it seals it before you lose too much air. So effectively it feels like you don't get punctures. Yes, you can do it, and yes, it does work. However, I've also heard people say that it doesn't work. So we actually suggested this as a tip in one of our videos back in January about how you can get less flat tires. And under that, I noticed there were a number of comments. Timotei of Bolo, he said that he put 40 mil of sealant in his tubes last summer, but then when he did get a puncture 7 months in, the sealant had dried out, basically. There was nothing inside the inner tube anymore. And then Strud77 said that he did it last year as well. And then actually he found that rather than sealing the inner tube, the sealant leaked out between the tube and the tyre, and it didn't do its job properly. So on the one hand, you've got people saying, yes, it does work, but clearly it doesn't work for everyone. So I mean, you haven't got anything to lose, really. It's 25 grams inside your inner tube. But just remember that it does dry out, and so if you put some in, you will need to top it up maybe 6 months later or so. Hence why perhaps Timotei, he punctured after 7 months. That's your problem. So if you do it, keep it topped up and let us know how you get on, basically. Right then, next up, we got this one from SJJJR1. How can I true my wheels without a truing stand? Or how can I true them? So if you've got rim brakes, it's actually really simple. So the brakes themselves act as a really good guide for how straight your wheel is. So if you've got a work stand, that's perfect. If not, I will give you permission just this once to turn your bike very gently and carefully upside down on a soft surface. And then basically you will see that as the wheel runs through the brakes, it will be out of true. And so the brakes themselves act as your truing guide. Now you could get even more accurate than that if you so wish. You could take your tyre off and then I've actually seen it done where you replace the brake pad itself with some kind of, well, you can either remove the brake pad and then sharpen the caliper stud, so you've actually got like a little point, which will really help because then you can move the caliper in slightly so that at the extreme points of the bend or the wobble, it touches the rim, so just like a proper truing stand. Or an alternative, and especially for disc brake users where you don't have brake calipers, is to get a blob of blue tack or white tack, and then literally blue tack or white tack, an Allen key or some such to the fork blades or the chainstays, and then that will obviously tell you how bent your wheel is, and you will be able to see as you're truing it right back up. So it's really simple. It's not quite as good, but definitely works. So yeah, give either of those two tips a go. Okay, next up we got this one from Matthew Langton. He said he lives in Iowa and he rides his bike year round. During the winter, it's below minus 18 degrees C. The other day it was minus 25. Ouch. Fair play for riding all year round. That's brilliant. He's asked a question though, is his helmet less protective at that temperature? Well, it's a very good question, that. So John has pointed out that helmets, when they're tested, so when they get their safety stickers on, they have to go through the same tests, like drop tests and so forth, at temperature extremes. So minus 20 and plus 50 degrees centigrade. So those are the two. Now, obviously, if you're riding minus 25, then technically your helmet hasn't been tested at those temperatures. But given that the helmet has already passed the other ones, you can probably assume that it is indeed okay to use. But yeah, I mean, I suppose you can't absolutely guarantee it, but pretty much you can be confident that that is absolutely fine. There are other things that affect the safety of your helmets, and actually the next question from Wayne Proud refers to that. So he said he's heard about sunscreen damaging the inside of a helmet. So he refers to a YouTuber in Australia who has the hairless look. I'm not sure who that is. Finds the sunscreen eats away at the padding. Now again, John has very kindly left us some notes here. So when he worked at a helmet company, he said that he has actually seen the effects of sunscreen and insect repellent on the inside of the foam, so the EPS foam in your helmet. And basically it can make it go squidgy, and so it looks like he's eating away the helmet. But he then says that when the helmets are tested after they've been subjected to sunscreen and whatnot, that actually they are still just as effective. And I seem to remember from researching a video that actually in Japan, weirdly, their effectiveness safety tests actually have a test for hair oil. So you have to pass the hair gel test. Very important for someone like Mr. Lloyd, in fact. Less important for me and Matt. But anyway, so your helmets are well tested for all these extremes, but sunscreen and insect repellent are two of those as well. So yeah, you can be pretty sure that it'll be all right. Right, next up we've got Liam Sangaku. Should I run the same pressure, so the same PSI with latex tubes as normal tubes? Yes, you should, basically. Some people do think that latex tubes are slightly more puncture resistant, so you could theoretically drop a little bit out. But no, I would keep them exactly the same. John's pointing out that if you're using latex tube for cyclocross, that would be a reason to drop a little bit of pressure out as well. But do remember with latex tubes that they're porous, so they leak air out roughly about 20 psi overnight. So that's if you've got 80 psi in the first place. But yeah, so you will need to top them up more regularly. But effectively, you run them the same as normal. But it's always worth experimenting as well. So if you pump them up to your normal pressure and they feel a little bit harsh, why not drop 5 psi out? It's not going to do you any harm, and that way you then build up a kind of a knowledge and a feel for how your bike rides with all these different parameters on there. So good tip, that one. Right, finally, last question, we've got Luke 13. What exactly is the difference between a gravel bike and a cyclocross bike? Oh my word, this is like opening Pandora's box. How couldn't John have left this question till last? It's going to take us an hour and a half at least to even get started on this. Okay, right. A cyclocross bike and a gravel bike, both drop bar handlebar bikes designed to be used off-road. At the extreme ends of the spectrum, so if you can say the most cyclocrossy bike you can imagine that's designed to win world championships, that is likely to have slightly more aggressive geometry, so perhaps a lower position. The bike will feel a little bit quicker to ride. It might have a slightly higher bottom bracket, and in extreme cases, it won't have any water bottle bosses. So in cyclocross, you don't have a water bottle. So you do find some bikes that are designed purely for racing, so they don't have any water bottle mounts at all, which means that the bike is effectively next to useless for actually riding in the real world. But there you go, that's an extreme cyclocross bike. At the other end, an extreme gravel bike, you tend to find that they're a bit more relaxed, so your position is much more upright. The clearance for tyres will be bigger, so you can put mega fat, big comfy tyres on there. It'll have bosses for everything you can think of, so panniers and mud guards and 12 water bottles. They're like true utility vehicles. Except that it's not as simple as that. You don't just have extreme cyclocross and extreme gravel. It's like a sliding scale of graveliness and crossness. And so actually, quite often in the middle, one brand might call one bike a gravel bike, another brand might call effectively the same thing a cyclocross bike, because they're kind of doing the same job. So if that is hopefully sort of starting to illustrate what the landscape looks like, if you buy a cyclocross bike, you can use it on gravel. If you buy a gravel bike, you can use it for cyclocross effectively, but depending on exactly what you want to do and how much of it you want to do, that's going to sway you more towards one end of the spectrum than another. A case in point would be my own Trek Crockett that I ride all the time. I have sometimes called it a gravel bike because in their marketing literature they say that it is effective for gravel, but then I race cyclocross on it and it's great, and I would not change it in any way. So it is both gravel and cyclocross, which gives you an indication of the fact that it is very much a grey area. Hopefully we've got out of that one unscathed, but that is one seriously complicated question. Right, that brings us to the end of the Tech Clinic for this week. If you have a burning tech question, then make sure you leave it either in the comment section down below or submit it to us on social media using the hashtag which is on screen now. And I'm sure normal service will resume next week, so please don't worry about getting me again. Right, if you want to watch another video right now, then why not click just over there for this week's Maintenance Monday video, which is actually how to wash a bike like a pro. It's a good one, just over there.